Hey, so in today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how to make some magic bread. It's a very long video. It's about 30 minutes. So I'm going to have it on TikTok and the YouTube. I think Patreon will let me post maybe a 10-minute clip and Instagram 3 minutes. So depending on what channel you might have to jump on TikTok or our YouTube. I'll put those sites up here for you. But it's an awesome video, and I'm going to walk you through making a consumption spell bread for yourself or for a target today. Hey everybody, so today I am going to teach you how to make magic bread. So this is consumption spell work. This is where you're consuming the spell or a target is consuming the spell. It can be for any intent. It does work well for large groups, like if you're doing a group ritual, group magic, and holidays, of course, Sabbats. This is a wonderful implement in terms of casting an intent. So let me show you what you're gonna need. All right, so what we're gonna need, get yourself a nice sourdough, no knead bread mix. You are going to need, for the inclusion of the intent, some icing paper, icing sheets. We're gonna be using that for our sigil work. Wafer paper works well too. I have these little wafer money pieces here that we're going to be baking into our magic bread. Obviously, adornment is important in ritual. Mugwort. I include mugwort usually in anything that's going to include love or money magic. So we have that. Decorative elements, edible glitter, you guys. Come on. I like disco dust. Disco dust, you can get that on Amazon. Petal dust, you can buy this. Michael's, Hobby Lobby. Metallic edible glitter, one of my favorite things to use. Painting, we're going to be painting our bread, painting our sigils as well. That's so funny, it's trying to give my paint tray the little ears there. All right, so you're going to want some brushes, you're going to want a paint tray for mixing, and you're going to want some edible markers. Liquid whitening. This is going to be added to our food coloring that we're going to be painting the bread with. I also like to add a little bit of cherry blossom powder. This is probably the best one that I use. It just gives it a little bit of sweetness. Other implements. Okay, I'm just using like one of my pots because your sourdough is going to have to rise for about 2 hours. I like using something the shape of what I would like my end product to be in. Something big enough for it to rise in. Brushes, mixers. You're going to need some measuring cups here. Some plastic wrap or some aluminum foil because we're going to want to cover our bread while it's rising. Okay, you guys, so what we're going to do is make our bread first. Get yourself an easy bread mix. My bread mix that I'm using, you have your bread mix, you have your yeast, you're going to get warm water, you're going to mix it in your shaped element here, and then we're basically going to cover it and let it sit for 2 hours to rise. So very easy part of making the bread. All right, it's cooperating. All right, so I mixed my bread. We have it sitting over here. Take a look. All right, so it's going to sit there. If you use plastic wrap, it's going to fog up a bit, but it needs to rise to about double its size. Takes about 2 hours for most of these no-knead kits. And then we are going to load it. Hey, I had somebody ask me in one of the sites that I post my videos on why I'm always doing videos in my white house robe. Listen, for the first time ever, I live by myself. No men, no kids, no animals. I'm on the 21st floor here, and I'm naked all the time, because why would I put clothes on? Now, if people in the Hyatt or the Four Seasons or DoubleTree or Sheraton or any of these hotels that I'm surrounded by want to look in here, well, whatever. Anyways, while our dough is rising, we need to make our sigils and symbols, aspecting what the intent is that we're casting on our icing paper. So let's take a look. Let me see how I can switch this. Hang on. I'm not great with tech, you guys. All right, our icing paper. You can get this on Amazon. Icing paper is great because it's going to melt completely into the dough when we bake it. There's going to be a little sweet spot there, but that's fine. We're going to use a little bit of a sweetening agent anyway. You're just going to cut off a small piece of this. It's going to be in this like protective wrap. Leave that on for as long as you can because icing paper can be a little sticky. So then you're going to cut that little strip up into smaller little squares here because we don't want them too large. We want them to melt, and we don't want any like little paper gobs in there. There's nothing worse than a Target eating a spellcrafted bread saying, what is that I'm biting into? You never want that to happen. All right, so very simple. I'm going to make this loaf for money and love drawing, and so that's what I'm going to use is money and love drawing sigils. Okay, so here is an example. I took off the little plastic pieces, used my edible markers, and so I did some open money draws from open sourcing, anything that I can tap into acquisition potential for. If you were serving this bread to somebody who owed you money and you were trying to get them to pay your debt or maybe to borrow you money or something like that, you could do like a debt payment or a loan sigil and like, you know, write out maybe a little bit of a blip of what you're wanting. So I just, Maddie, pay me. She actually doesn't owe me money, but I'm using her as an example. Love, you know, if you're doing an open draw, you can do an open draw love symbol. If it's targeted, you can do more targeted love draws, especially if you're feeding this to a target. And love isn't always romantic and sexual, you guys. Sometimes it's family. You're trying to repair a family bond. Maybe it's a friend you're having some tension with. So go ahead and do targeted symbols for that. You can use initials. You can use other targeting details like years. And then get that kind of drawn out and prepared on your icing blips that we're going to be adding to our bread. All right, wafer paper. You guys can use wafer paper. Now, wafer paper is tasteless, so it's not going to leave a sweet spot. And here's the thing, if you're going to be making bread that you're consuming yourself, go ahead and use wafer paper. If you are serving this to a target that is unaware, I would probably use the wafer paper for adornment versus baking it into the loaf. And here's why. Unlike icing paper that's going to completely melt away and there's just going to be like a little bit of a sugary spot, this might not melt completely. There might be a little bit of that wafer paper in there that they might, you know, end up biting into. They may not taste it, but if this doesn't soften fully, you might have to explain why you put something in their bread. So I like wafer paper if it's for me or somebody who's aware that we're eating a consumption bread for you know, activating a spell. Otherwise, use it for adornment. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an option. All right, you guys, so now we need to make our edible paints. And you probably hear a lot of bells going. I live right by like a bunch of cathedrals too. I mean, living downtown is great, but holy cow noise. All right, so let's look at colors. You're gonna wanna get your palette or your plates ready. Now you can use any variety of colors here. Your standard food colorings, you can get gel colorings, you can get powder colorants. I also, like I said, I do implement glitter as well. So what you're gonna do is take your liquid whitening or whitener. You can get this also on Amazon. I'm gonna put that, a little bit of it right here. Gosh, I'm so sorry if those bells are loud. They're loud for me. We're gonna make this blue. So I'm gonna add a couple drops of blue here. I'm going to add a little bit of glitter. Just tap, 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 tap. I'm gonna take one of my brushes here and I'm gonna mix it. We're gonna mix, mix, mix. And now you can play with colors. You can mix colors to make unique colors. So right now I'm just making this really pretty kind of royal glittery blue, mixing it in real nice with that liquid white whitener. Now you're gonna do this for all your colors. Okay, you guys, so we have our blue here. I did a black, made it a little bit gray. We got a green, we got this pinkish red. You know, I used a powder here. Make sure your glitter, of course, is edible glitter. Like I said, I like disco dust. I added that to the 4 main colors I'm using. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be drawing a money tree, some love symbols, and then some just cute decorative sigils I'll be hiding underneath some of those main images. Make sure that your brushes, you keep them separate. You don't want to mix colors unless you're mixing, I guess intentionally, you want to do some sort of mix. But yeah, so get that set up and ready to go. Hey, so while we're waiting for our sourdough to rise, I thought I would just share with you a little bit of history with consumption magic. When I first started studying this years ago, King Henry VIII, one of his wives, I think it was Catherine Parr, mid 1500s, she actually used consumption spell work. What she would do is when she would make him his egg omelets, she would actually cry tears and shed tears into the eggs, use her nail to carve her initials in the egg before she would fold it over and serve it to him. She used to do that to keep him committed to her, to keep the fidelity there. Obviously it didn't work 100%, but maybe for a time it did. So it was a fascinating kind of consumption spell from the mid 1500s. Then there was one that my grandma actually taught me. You know, my grandpa would go hunting. He would slaughter a deer, bring it home, you know, do whatever it is that these men do to get out and part out these deer. And he would always do these venison roasts. So what grandma would do is she would actually soak that roast overnight, marinate it in an herbal compound, and she would take one of her pieces of jewelry, sometimes even her wedding ring. She would wrap it in a little foil pack with a petition, and she would actually put that into the pan that was marinating that roast overnight. You know, obviously in the morning when she would remove it to actually bake that roast, she would, you know, take the jewelry packet out, of course. But again, it was a way to maintain fidelity, maintain connection, maintain prioritization in the relationship so that it was always a priority over all else. So those are just kind of fun, fascinating consumption spell facts. I do a lot of compounding with roots and herbs for consumption work. I like doing coffees, hot chocolates, the breath drops. I have this really great love domination jam. Now, I usually take that out of the shop in the summer months because I get nervous about shipping it when it's hot outside. But these are all anything that can be consumed. You can compound for an intent, and you can activate a spell with that through consuming it yourself or through serving it to a target, or again, in group magic. It's a wonderful group magic resource. But I just thought I would share those fun facts with you while we have a little time here to kill. So one more fun consumption spell fact I wanted to give you guys before I forget. So for weddings, for marriage, I actually love this, and I actually have incorporated this into one of my wedding ceremonies. It is taking quassia chips, rice paper, which rice paper is edible. You can use this in consumption magic. You would actually write out your petition, your marriage petition, you and your partner. You burn that piece of rice paper in a sacred bowl along with locks of your hair. So a lock of your hair, a lock of your partner's hair. You burn that down to ash along with quassia chips. Sorry, I have a hard time pronouncing that. So quassia chips, locks of hair, rice paper with your "we're going to be happy forever" petition on it with your names. Burn that down to ash in a little sacred bowl. Then you add that to red wine. I like Italian Brusco, but you can use any kind of red wine. Go ahead and mix those ashes in, and then you both drink from that wine goblet. Actually, I used a German wedding cup. German wedding cups are very powerful for sealing bonds and sealing vows, just like a sixpence at a wedding. And the German wedding cup is interesting too because you both can drink from it at the same time. So we used a German wedding cup just to kind of enhance that ritual. But a very powerful consumption spell that seals a bond and seals a vow, that I have suggested to brides-to-be that I've worked with to incorporate that on their wedding day, just to kind of amplify the support structure, the karmic supports for that bonding. Okay, you guys, so it's been about 2 hours. Our dough has raised about double its size. So now you're going to take it out. We're going to rest it for 40 minutes. While it's resting is when we're going to load it and decorate it. So let me turn my camera here. Hang on. This is also a good time to preheat your oven to 450 degrees. All right, you guys. So I like using plastic wrap because, well, you can move it around. You can do stuff with it now. You can pat it if you want to make it a little bit more shapely. If this is your first time, don't worry about shape. You're just trying to figure out how to do this. Now, the directions are going to tell you to pat it down with flour. I use this wonderful Sakara latte mix. It is just the tiniest bit of sweetness. And I'm going to take a little bit here, and I'm just going to do this. And the reason I use this instead of flour is I want to give it a tiny bit of sweetness because we are loading it with those icing sheets. And so it's almost like a sweetened sourdough, but it's not overwhelming. It's very nice, actually. Okay, then you can tap that in. You're going to make 3 serrations. And the reason you're going to do this is because while it's cooking or baking, it's going to need to have heat escape. So on this side of the bread, I'm just going to make 3 slits here. Easy peasy. Now, we are going to flip this into our baking implement. Oops. Okay, we need to, I forgot, I almost skipped an important step. We got to put our icing petitions in it on this side before we flip it. So hang on. All right, so what I like to do is I just take one of my paint brushes. I'm going to make like a little hole right here. I'm just going to push it in, making a little entryway. I'm going to take one of my petitions. Now, I roll it up. It's kind of hard to do this holding a phone, but I'm going to do this kind of rough, and then I'm going to do the rest without the phone. Now, the paper might, you know, have like a little bit of a rip or something as you're rolling it. That's fine. You're just going to slip that into your bread. You're going to push it all the way in there. You can take this now and you can pull dough around it. Pinch it off if you want. Pat it down. And we're going to do that with all of our petitions. Okay, so I wanted to show you real quick. Spread out your petitions, okay? Once you have them in there, then you just get them pushed all the way in. Pinch off the dough around it. Now, it's going to melt completely. It's going to be absorbed by the dough. It's going to spread. But this ensures adequate placement. You know, you don't want to be having to cut off certain pieces to make sure Target eats it. So go ahead and get that all in and pinched. Okay, guys. So now this is what I'm going to bake it in. I'm going to spray it with some Pam. I know your directions on your box is probably going to tell you, oh, you know, use a baking sheet. I like to try to maintain shape. This works just fine. We're going to plop this bad boy in here upside down, and we're going to paint the opposite side. All right, so we got her plopped. I'm going to use my plastic wrap here just to kind of push down on it, spread it a little bit. Okay, now we're working with the opposite side. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to serrate it about 3 times before I start painting it. And now this is the fun part. We're going to paint, you guys. All right, get out your paints. Now I am going to start by doing some white sigils. So I'm going to give myself some just regular white edible food grade whitening agent paint here. It's a gel. And I forgot to bring one just for white, so we're gonna try to clear off this blue one the best that I can. Try to not forget to have one for white. So I'm gonna probably start with some money sigils. Okay, you guys, so as you see, I did some white sigil work for open money drawing and targeted love. Now, you only have 40 minutes for the decorative part before we get this in the oven. So until you really get a handle of things, keep it simple. I'm showing you kind of a simplified version of this today. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna probably start doing my symbolism painting. So I'm gonna start with a money tree. And I'm gonna be painting my money tree right over my money sigils. Okay, so there's my kind of simplified little money tree. Now I'm gonna do some love symbolism. Okay, so I'm doing some hearts for love symbolism. You can do whatever you want, but the dab method works great, dabbing that paint on, because you're dabbing it on over some sigil work. So you can go ahead and dab. Don't worry perfectly about shape, because shape is going to change a little bit. Don't expect it to be perfect the first couple of times, you guys. So now I have my money tree. I have my hearts. Now I want to decorate it, maybe using some magical motifs, and I'm going to go to that royal blue. So magic is a lot like connecting the dots. It's connecting dots of energy, connecting bridges of energy. And so I do use a lot of circular patternized dots. And what I'm doing is I'm representing the circle of magic, the flow of the magic, and how we're going to be connecting these things. Now, the colors are going to be very bright and vivid. Understand when you bake this, it's going to lose some of that vividness. So don't expect it to stay bright. We do have 40 minutes. Usually I'll go in and I'll do a second or third coating of paint if I want it to be more vivid. Right now, though, we are going to spray it with some magical edible glitter. Okay, so I am going to be using a gold edible glitter to represent money drawing. We're going to give it some, this is powerful stuff. And I'm going to be doing like this, almost like a rosish, like burnt wine gold. This is for that love petition. Now, as this bakes, obviously you see these more defined colors from the glitter. That's going to obviously lessen. There is an absorption factor with this, which is kind of cool. You know, when they're eating it, it's going to be a little bit glittery into that first, you know, little bit of dough there. But now we're going to give this a second, and we're going to go back over and we're going to do some more painting. All right, so we gave it a few minutes to set. One of the first things I'll do here is I'll just kind of go through. I'm going to bring my tree back out. I'm going to dab my tree. Okay, so I went through, I brought my tree back out, my hearts back out. I'm bringing some of my blue dots back out, but not all of them. Just the ones that catch my eye, the ones that I feel are potent or need a little bit more color. You know, trust your instinct on this part. It's looking real pretty, very shiny, very sparkly. Now let's talk about those wafer papers. So here are our wafer papers. Now you can get printable wafer paper if you have an edible printer, or you can buy these prefab. I buy Money and Loved Ones prefab off Amazon. Do I want to put some wafer paper adornments on here? Sure. I'm going to do one right here over my tree. I'm just going to do the one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this brush I didn't use. I'm going to put some white on there. I'm going to put that right over my tree here. And I'm going to push that right down into my money tree. Okay, you guys, so we're pretty much set up here. We're going to let this sit for the last of those 40 minutes before we put it in the oven. This is a time where you can focus on your petition. You can do prayers. You can set intentions with energy. Maybe you're using candle magic. You might have a candle sitting here and you're infusing or transferring or transmuting power from that loaded candle into your bread. There's a lot of different implements you can do at this point. All right, so it's time to put her in the oven. So 450 degrees for about 21 to 23 minutes, depending on how dark you want her. I always put mine on the top, push my handle in, and voila. Okay, so while we're waiting for our magic bread to finish baking, I thought I would share another recipe with you. I call these lullaby muffins, and I used to make them for my girls when they were real little because they did not like to sleep. And if you're not a baker, that's fine. I used to go and buy the poppy seed muffin mix. What you're going to want to do is you are going to, now these mixes are either going to require water or oil. If it's water, boil some chamomile, some like very raw cut chamomile in the water and then strain it. Or if it's oil, you're going to soak that raw cut chamomile in the oil for about 3 to 4 days. So you have a little bit of prep there. But you're going to go ahead and mix that chamomile water or oil in the mix. You are going to add finely ground mugwort. Now mugwort does have an herby taste to it, so depending on your taste, more or less. I used to use a lot because I just really wanted to get them to sleep. And then lavender sugar. After I would bake the muffins, the lullaby muffins, I would add lavender sugar to the top. Now, here's an interesting thing with these muffins. They do help with sleep. They do help with kind of overcoming bouts of insomnia. But the other thing is they are used in dream work. So if you do dream work, if you want to try to amplify that liminal space that we all have access to in our dream state for divine messaging, guidance, and ancestor work, Asclepius, as you know, Greek, snake dream healing. Lullaby muffins are a great implement to that. You can make a batch of those and use those when you're doing dream work. So they work in both arenas. I know the girls, when they were little and I would give them the lullaby muffins, they would have some wild dreams, which was pretty awesome. I think they were ancestral dreams. They didn't realize what they were, but they were very comforting, good dreams, good messaging, good visitations. But it is a very powerful consumption spell. And if you want to know more, just reach out to me. Okay, guys, so we baked it for 23 minutes. Here is our final piece. I popped it out. It's kind of hard to, this was a very rough draft for you guys, but let it cool. I'm just cutting into mine to kind of give you a glimmer of how everything is broken down and melted into that sourdough. You can see the steam coming out of it. It's beautiful. There's a little bit of color and glitter there, but broken down nicely. And enjoy.